The year was 3142 and the galaxy was no longer a mystery. Hundreds of civilizations had made contact, building networks of trade, treaties, and fragile trust. Among these civilizations, humanity was still considered young. They had spread quickly, reaching the stars in just a few centuries, and their reputation was mixed. Some saw them as reckless, impulsive, and emotional. Others whispered that humans carried something rare, something other species had lost long ago, a flame of determination that refused to go out. It was on Harmony's crown, a great station built in neutral space that the most important voices of the galaxy gathered. Floating among stars like a silver ring, the station was home to diplomats, merchants, and thinkers from more than 40 species. It was a place of constant debate and negotiation. Every corridor echoed with 100 different languages. Among the arriving envoys was Kaelin of the Seralith, a young ambassador chosen for her calm presence. The Seralith were a crystalline people, tall and luminous, their skin faintly glowing as if light lived beneath it. They were admired for their wisdom and balance, for their ability to keep emotion quiet and controlled. For centuries, their way had been the way of silence, never letting passion disturb their decisions. Kaelin had never questioned this. To feel was dangerous, her teachers had said. To remain calm was survival. And yet as she stepped into Harmony's crown, she sensed a different kind of air. The humans were here too. She had heard of them, of course. Everyone had. They were famous for loud laughter, for reckless courage, for the way they clung to each other even in the coldest places. But Kaelin had never spoken to one until that day. Her first meeting was with Commander Elias Vare, who had been asked to represent humanity at the negotiations. He was not chosen for rank or for politics. The humans did not always respect such things, but because he had something they valued more: conviction. When Kaelin saw him, she was surprised. He was not made of light or crystal like her people. He was flesh, strong but fragile, his skin marked by years of service. His eyes, though, startled her most. They burned with a warmth she had never felt from another being. They were alive, restless, searching. Ambassador Kaelin, Elias said with a small smile. It's an honor, she bowed lightly. Commander Vare, the honor is mine. To outsiders, their first meeting looked ordinary. They discussed trade balances, the terms of a treaty, and cultural differences. But to Kaelin, every word felt unusual. Humans did not speak with the calm weight of the Seralith. Elias spoke like a river, flowing with energy, unafraid to show joy, frustration, or hope. His voice carried not just information but feeling, as if each sentence carried part of his heart. At first, Kaelin tried to remain distant. She nodded politely, answered with careful balance. Yet something in her began to shift. There was no mask on him. He was not hiding behind silence. His emotions shone like firelight, and though she had been taught to fear such heat, she found herself curious. That night, Kaelin walked alone along the station's garden dome. She thought of Elias's stories, of oceans on Earth that roared against cliffs, of children laughing in cities of glass and steel, of humanity's endless hunger to reach further, climb higher, never surrender. She realized that while her people lived with quiet endurance, humans lived with noisy passion, and though passion could be dangerous, it also seemed beautiful. The days passed, and she found herself seeking him out more often. At first, she told herself it was for diplomacy, but soon she could not deny the truth. She wanted to hear his voice, to see the way his eyes lit up when he spoke of home. Elias, too, began to notice her. At first, Kaelin's serenity had made her seem distant, almost untouchable, but as they spoke, he saw gentle curiosity in her, like a flower slowly opening. She asked about music, about how humans could turn pain into song. She asked about courage, about why people risked their lives for strangers. And he answered honestly, because for him there was no point in hiding what he felt. One evening, Kaelin confessed softly, "Your people, they feel so much. My people would say it is weakness." Elias looked at her with quiet strength. "Maybe it is weakness sometimes, but it's also what keeps us going. We fall, but we get up again. We lose, but we love again. To feel deeply is what makes us human. It's not something we hide. It's something we carry." Her heart trembled. She had never thought of feelings as something to carry proudly. But before their bond could deepen further, the galaxy reminded them of its dangers. Word spread that the Ithari were moving again. The Ithari were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were a collective intelligence, ancient and vast, who believed all life should join their harmonic unity. To the Ithari, individuality was chaos, and chaos had to be erased. Entire civilizations had been absorbed into their silence. On Harmony's crown, fear rippled through the delegates. Many whispered of surrender. The Seralith, bound by their logic, leaned toward submission. For them, survival was more important than pride. If joining the Ithari meant living, they would accept. Kaelin listened to her people debate, but her thoughts drifted to Elias. She remembered his voice saying, "To feel deeply is what makes us human." She wondered what he would choose. That night, she found him again in the observatory, staring out at the stars. His expression was calm but firm, like someone holding a storm inside. "You heard the news," she said quietly. He nodded. "Yeah, they'll be here soon. And you will fight them?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Of course," Elias said. His voice was steady. "Even if the odds are impossible, even if we're outnumbered. Because surrender means losing who we are. If we stop being ourselves, then what's the point of survival?" Kaelin's chest tightened. "But what if you are destroyed?" "Then at least we burned brightly," he said. "At least we lived as ourselves." She stood in silence, unable to answer. She had never met anyone who spoke that way. To her people, such defiance was madness. But to her, it felt like truth. For the first time in her life, Kaelin felt something dangerous inside her. A spark. A spark that came from him, from his strong desire not for conquest but for freedom, for dignity, for life. And she realized then that her path, and her people's path, might never be the same again. The days after the Ithari threat was announced were heavy on Harmony's crown. The station's great halls, usually full of polite debate and calm discussion, now buzzed with whispers of fear. Delegates walked quickly, avoiding each other's eyes. Some species began packing to leave, retreating to their homeworlds before the Ithari arrived. Kaelin listened to the Seralith delegation, her elders speaking with their usual calm voices. But beneath the surface of their words, she could sense unease. "It is simple," one elder said. "The Ithari demand unity. If we agree, we survive. If we resist, we are lost. This is logic," others nodded. To them, it was clear. There was no reason to fight something greater than themselves. To live even in silence was better than to vanish. But Kaelin's heart trembled. For the first time in her life, logic did not feel enough. She remembered Elias's words, the warmth in his voice, the fire in his eyes. If we stop being ourselves, then what's the point of survival? She excused herself and went to find him. She knew where he would be. The observatory where the stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. He stood there as always, hands behind his back, staring out into the universe. "You are calm," she said softly as she approached. He gave a small smile. "Not really. I'm just good at pretending." Kaelin tilted her head. "My people would surrender. They believe silence is safer than struggle. Why do you resist?" Elias turned, his gaze steady on her. "Because life without freedom isn't life. The Ithari want to take away the things that make us human. Our laughter, our music, our mistakes, our love. If we give that up, what's left of us? Just empty shells." His words shook her deeply. To Kaelin, emotions had always been dangerous, something to contain. But Elias's passion was not wild destruction. It was a strength, a light, something that made even the darkest future seem less frightening. She looked at him closely. "And if the Ithari cannot be stopped?" "Then we stand anyway," he said. "Because even if we fail, we show the galaxy that fear is not the only choice." Kaelin fell silent. Her people had always chosen safety. But now, in Elias's presence, she wondered if true life required something more. The Ithari emissaries arrived days later. They were not like other species. They did not walk as individuals, but as a single presence. When they entered the council chamber, it felt as though the air itself grew heavy. Their voices spoke together in unison, calm yet overwhelming. "Join harmony, end division. Become one with us. Resistance brings only sorrow. Unity brings eternal peace." The words flowed like waves, steady and persuasive. Many delegates lowered their eyes. Some whispered agreement. The Seralith elder beside Kaelin bowed his head. "They speak truth. To refuse them is folly." Kaelin's heart pounded. She looked across the chamber and found Elias standing tall, his jaw set, his eyes steady. When the Ithari asked for his people's answer, Elias stepped forward. His voice was strong, carrying through the hall. "Humanity does not surrender. We will not give up who we are. We will not trade our freedom, our songs, or our dreams for silence. If survival means becoming something less than human, then it is no survival at all. The chamber fell quiet. Some gasped softly at his defiance. Others shook their heads at his foolishness. Kaylin felt something ignite inside her. She rose from her place, her crystalline form glowing brighter than ever before. The elders turned in shock, but she did not stop. "I will speak," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "The Seralith have always chosen silence. We have always chosen survival. But what kind of survival is it if it means losing ourselves? Today I choose something different. I choose to stand with the humans. I choose to keep my voice." The Seralith delegates stared at her as though she had broken every sacred rule. For a Seralith to speak with passion was unheard of. But Kaylin felt no regret. She felt alive. One by one, others began to rise. A Trillian delegate lifted his wings high. A group of Kirelth, usually timid, spoke in unison. "We will not yield." The fire had spread. The Ithari voice grew heavier, pressing down on the chamber. "Disunity breeds sorrow. You cannot resist us." But Elias stepped closer, his presence unshaken. "Maybe. But even if we cannot stop you, we will not go quietly. You may silence our voices, but you will never erase them. We will burn so brightly that even in the darkest void others will remember." Kaylin felt tears, real tears, well in her crystalline eyes, something no Seralith was ever meant to show. And yet she let them fall. For she finally understood. Emotions were not weakness. They were strength. The Ithari withdrew that day, not because they were defeated in battle, but because they encountered something they did not understand. Their power was built on fear and surrender. But here, on Harmony's crown, they found hearts that refused to bow. Love, courage, and conviction had pushed back their silence. When the chamber emptied, Kaylin found herself alone with Elias. She looked at him, her glow still shimmering softly. "You changed me," she said quietly. "All my life I was told to be calm, to be silent, to hide what I feel. But you showed me that love, courage, and desire are not dangerous. They are the brightest lights of all." Elias smiled. Not the proud smile of a victor, but the gentle smile of someone who believed in her. "And you showed me that innocence isn't weakness. It's hope. Together they make us stronger." For a long moment they stood there looking out at the stars. The galaxy was still vast and uncertain. The Ithari would return one day. There would be challenges, divisions, and fears. But in that moment, Kaylin and Elias knew they had found something unbreakable. It was not just diplomacy or politics. It was not even just survival. It was love. Not the fragile kind, but a love that burned bright enough to change not only themselves, but everyone who saw it. On Harmony's crown, in the heart of a galaxy filled with fear, two souls from different worlds had met. Her gentle innocence had touched his strong desire, and together they created a flame that would not die. And in that flame was the true power of humanity, the power to inspire, to awaken, and to remind the universe of what it had forgotten, that even in the endless dark, love can burn so brightly that no shadow can endure.